I'm Lisa, and you're with Velo Dulce, the show where we talk women, cycling, and life. Velo Dulce is from the Italian phrase La Vida Dolce, which means the good life. These are stories from women around the world. My guest today is Carrie Leaf. Carrie is currently a practicing psychotherapist, holistic mindset coach, and hypnotherapist. She holds a degree in psychology and has completed her master's in marriage and family therapy. She's worked in the field of psychology in a wide variety of settings, everything from community mental health to hospitals to youth residential homes, substance abuse, military base, college, university, and private practice. She is also the mother of 2 twin boys and a stepmom to their older brother and sister, and a furbaby mom to 2 boxer dogs. I wanted to chat to Carrie because, as you know, on the show, we talk about performance and we talk about people's lives, and I was really interested in mindset, and I was also interested in how she does it all. So welcome, Carrie.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you for joining. Okay, so I read your bio. I was half intimidated and half intrigued. Like, how on earth does it all happen, all of that?
Yeah, like all of the different things that I'm doing, or is that what you mean?
Yes, like mom, therapist. I've just recently bought your book.
Yes, it is. It's a lot going on. That is for sure. Part of that is just straight personality. That's how I like it. I'm goal oriented, got to be working on the next thing, the next project. My husband likes to use the phrase, you're doing too much a lot. And sometimes he's right. I'll have to, kind of check in with myself and see where am I at and am I taking too much on my plate? But otherwise, I really like to try to get all of those things in balance. And I know that none of them are going to do very well if I can't, tend to my self-care. So it's developing systems and routines for sure.
Okay, so I want to explore more about that. Before we do, how did you come to be Carrie Leaf, who we see today, and the brief little bit we know about you? Like, what took you on the path of therapy?
Yeah, that's been in the plan, in the works for a long time. Somewhere middle school, high school, I knew that I'd be going into psychology. Just when relationships really started to, I guess, just pique my interest in human behavior and where my friendships meant the world to me, in those middle school, high school years, and exploring relationships with other people, and then as well the relationship with myself. And so I've known I would go into psychology for a long time. And then, through that journey, like you mentioned, there's been a lot of different settings. I've worked with different populations, different experiences. And through my practice and all this time, it's really narrowed it down to the holistic approach that I have today and finding the importance in that and sticking with that. So, working with clients in all kinds of different populations, ages, issues, and seeing that no matter who I was working with, there were some things that I was going to want to touch and cover with all of them, no matter what. And those, looking at the mind, body, spirit, and taking that holistic approach, it doesn't matter who you are or what you're coming to me for, we'll want to look at those things because that's where I've seen the most progress when we address them all.
Amazing. And you spoke about like having systems. I'm assuming that some of the systems you develop with clients are the same which you use for yourself. What is that?
Yeah, in or around, right? Because it's really important to me to know that we understand that we're all, it's a tailored approach. What works for me doesn't mean it's going to work for you, but that might just be tweaking the specifics to a system. But with the systems, you know, the book explains my approach, how I look at that, scanning environments, looking at the mind, looking at the body, looking at the spirit, the soul, and where are we at in each of those areas? Where are we at in our relationships, our finances, our career, our health, our physical health, and really looking at each area, and am I doing well, and this isn't a place where I can maintain, or do I need to kind of amp this one up, give it a little more attention? And that's an ongoing, never ending process, right? Things are going to ebb and flow in each area. But then also developing self-care systems and routines, physical health systems and routines, bedtime, workout, like all the things. There's so many things in life, and the more we can get on autopilot and systems, the less we run into decision fatigue each day and being worn out because we're all over the place. Some things are just on routine and autopilot, and that's fantastic. But I can't tell somebody what foods to eat, what coping skills to use, what self-care. We can use psychoeducation and talk about how these will help and what are some options. But for each person, that's a journey. What coping skills work for you? What's your bedtime routine? What's your time? How many hours of sleep do you need? What foods work well with your body? On and on. But the more we do have a system or routine around it, the better we're going to do.
I must say, I wholeheartedly agree with you. I have also been a student of human behavior for like 2 decades, and I never realized, actually until the last year, like the importance of habits, just things that really set me up. Because if you've listened to the show before, and listeners who listen to the show will know, I've interviewed like professional athletes, a lot of people who seem to be able to go above and beyond what is possible. And it's kind of a theme I've been exploring for a long time. And I never realized how key habits were in taking you to that next level. I can tell you that without so many hours of sleep, and unless I start my day in a certain way, like just doing one or two little things really sets me, like gears me up for success. So I can totally relate.
Yes, it's a big deal. The more we have it just wired into our brain, this is how it operates, the less we're not using mental power to think about those things. Is it Mark Zuckerberg? I can't remember who it is. Maybe it's, the Facebook guy, but like talking about only having like 2 or 3 outfits and just putting that on rotate. Is it Bill Gates? I don't know, but right. Like
I think it's Mark Zuckerberg. Yeah.
Yeah. And not having to think about, what am I wearing today? Boom. There's some mental energy I just saved. I get up, I brush my teeth, and I do X, Y, and Z. I don't have to think about, okay, what do I do right here, right now? It is habit and routine. It saves us a lot of mental energy, and decision fatigue is a real thing. I'm sure most people can relate and have had that feeling of like, the big one is, what's for supper? Right. I don't know. I'm so tired of deciding what's for supper, right? But if we have a routine that it's mapped out, it's planned out, that's one less decision we got to like battle with, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So there are probably 2 or 3 major things I want to explore with you today. And what the first one is like, where is and I guess this is for everyone, but I don't know, I'm interested to know how you would see this. Like, where is the point between magically living your life and allowing for, like, I could never choose just 2 or 3 outfits. That's not going to happen, because I like freedom of expression. Like, today is a blue day or it's a red day, or, I need that to be able to express myself in the world. So where is the point between allowing for what I call the magic of life to happen and taking stress off of you?
Yeah, I think that's an evaluation of what is your stressor in the first place, right? If it makes you happy to pick out your outfit, it's not a problem, right? But if it's
Right.
like, oh, what am I going to wear today? It's a problem. And so evaluating your day to day, what things start to irritate me? What things am I sick of? I'm tired of, I'm frustrated of. One big one for me was either the laundry or the meal planning. And, when I had twins, there was just no time and energy left to deal with those things. And so those were big stressors. I mean, they were before kids and after kids, but in particular at that time in my life, I just did not have the time and the energy, sleep deprived, all the things. And so, developing systems and routines for just getting my laundry done. Some people might be like, well, that's easy peasy, right? It was a big thing for me. It was building up on the weekends. And then I dreaded my weekends because I had to do the laundry every weekend. And
Right.
now I aim for one load every day or every other day, and it doesn't feel so daunting. And so that's really personal. It's really coming down to what is adding up, what's stressing in your life, what's getting to you. And then we tackle them one by one, but that's going to be so different for everybody.
That's a great perspective. I often think in general, we as humans view stress and then we kind of feel helpless. Well, there's nothing I can do about it.
Right.
It's just like laundry has to be done and, I have to do it. And that's just how it is. And we kind of work ourselves up. But actually, there often are things we can do. Like you said, if you do the laundry every other day, incidentally, I started doing that too. I do my laundry at night at 9 p.m. First of all, the cost of electricity is half after 8 p.m. So that's great. But if I do it then and it's done overnight, it feels invisible.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Exactly. And what we usually do a lot of times, like you said, is we just kind of say, oh, it's just a part of life, or we look at it as so overwhelming to change because I got this, I got that, I got a zillion things, and we get overwhelmed and we might shut down and never start anywhere. And that's where we want to baby step and just pick one thing. I remember when, I really kind of started going on my like developing systems journey for my house and my life. The laundry and the meal prep, the food, the dinners, were two big ones. And it just felt so daunting. I think finances was up there at the same time too. And I'm like, these are all three really big issues. And it was hard to get started. And so you just got to pick one, and then it's a trial and error process, right? But once you get one down, then you get more time and energy for the next.
Yeah, 100% agree. I want to talk then about having twins and having a family. I am single, so I come from a very different perspective, and sometimes I'm in my day. I mean, my days are very, very full. I actually work for a company which develops systems, and I have been a student of human behavior, and like you, have written books and run a podcast and train quite seriously sports-wise. And some days I'm just like, I just can't do this. It's just too much. And then I look at women like you and I'm like, oh my goodness, how is that even possible? Did you think that before having kids? Is it something, that you do it because, well, really you have to, and so you find a way?
Yeah, I think it's that understanding and idea that things are always shifting and changing, and we've always got to adapt. And if I pull from this area, I might need to give in this area, and we will adjust if we well, one, like you said, if we have to, like there's just some things I don't have a choice on, right? I just got to do this thing, but that might mean I need to scale back in another area. And, so that might mean less of something I enjoy or less of something that I don't know, that is like a financial, expense that I need to cut back on or whatnot. But again, it's all going to come back to that balance. We don't want to go to the extreme of anything if we can't help it. When the kids were younger,
Right.
I didn't get in the workouts like I wanted to, as often or as long. So it was more of a balance of just getting some in when I could for that season of life, and then as they got a little older and financial situation and work work schedule and all the things, and I could bring them to the gym with me. And, that helped out. And, there's seasons and there's phases. And so we've got to have that flexibility to adjust and adapt to where we are at that time, but keeping in mind the balance of it. If I got to pull from this area, where am I going to fill? We don't want to be like, I guess, like and try to give an image like completely lopsided. We want the structure and the foundation to stay strong. So it's give and take in each area. As long we just want to still attend to all of them. They just might look different for a season.
Yeah. And I like that idea of seasonality. We eat different foods in different seasons. Like, it makes sense that we have different seasons of our lives. And I think sometimes we forget that. It's like, everything all together, but
I know. I would love to say you just have to figure out this routine and these foods, this workout. And once you got it, it's smooth sailing for the rest of your life. No. But no, right? Life happens. We move, we take new jobs, we have kids, we meet people, like things change. And so we've got to change our routines as well.
Yeah, I love that. Oh, on that note, lately, one of my friends said to me the other day, she said something that really stuck with me. She said, something is better than nothing. So if you eat one vegetable, it's better than none. Or if you add just one workout of 20 minutes or 10 or go for a walk, it's better than nothing. And that's really, really stuck with me.
Yes, I think those baby step ideas are a big deal. It's that idea of like, the New Year's resolution of from who I am today, at midnight, tomorrow I can be a 180 totally different person. And then strangely, we don't stick with it, right? Because it's too much of a drastic change, right? Whereas if it's so far off from our homeostasis that we've created. But if we slowly make little baby steps and we do those little changes along the way, that little baby step sure adds up over time. I think there's probably a element of patience that is needed through those processes, right? Where we tend to be like pretty instant gratification people, especially in our society with click and I can buy something in Amazon and it's here the next day. We're like used to instant gratification, but there's something to that delayed gratification piece that's a big deal.
Absolutely. So something happened last year and I wanted to get your perspective on it because it really made me reflect. So I went out cycling one day and I was having a hard day on the bike. I was just like, I'm so tired and this is so hard and I hate cycling because it's such a hard sport. And suddenly I said to myself, you know what, how about we just stay here for 20 minutes? If you don't like it, you can go home. Like, that was kind of my mental approach. And after 20 minutes, I was loving it. But the thing is, I was pedaling and it felt so effortless, even though I was going uphill. And I honestly looked to see, like, maybe the bike is broken because this feels so easy. And I was like, what just happened? Like, what just happened here? That it suddenly changed. Like, yeah, I don't know if you've experienced similar things in your life in different situations.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what happened there was you shifted your mindset, right? Like if we look at cognitive behavioral therapy, what I think leads to how I feel, which leads to what I do. Think, feel, action, right?
Right.
So if I think, oh, I'm tired, this is so much work, I don't want to go work out, this is going to be miserable, it's going to take forever, that's automatically going to put me in, I'm thinking those thoughts, then my mood is down and low and, I'm cranky. And then my energy level, my action is going to mimic that. It's going to follow that. I'm going to be sluggish. It's going to feel very hard because I told myself it would be very hard. Whereas like you did with the cycling, if I just say, have flexible thinking, if there's some flexibility in my thinking and say, we'll see how it goes. I am tired, but let's just do something as opposed to nothing, 15, 20 minutes and see how it goes. We're opening up our mindset. Our feelings then are probably going to be much more positive and our energy level towards that task is going to like shoot up, right?
Right.
It all circles around our thoughts, the narrative we are writing in our head. Now, that's not, a magic cure to everything. If I just, the kind of the idea of toxic positivity, if I think everything is wonderful, well, how much am I being in denial and not attending to certain things? But for the most part, we really can shift what is happening in our life within our control based on what narrative, what story, the thoughts that we are allowing ourselves to hold on to.
And I like that. It's not about toxic positivity. It's just about, it's almost like one little step forward in your thinking. It's not like suddenly like, no, I'm loving this cycle. It's the best day of my life. No,
Right.
I'm still a bit tired, or, I still need to do the laundry. I'm a bit tired, but it's okay. Is kind of would be like the next step, which I like. I never kind of got that idea of like, it almost felt like sometimes like you're lying to yourself if you go like, this is amazing, when actually you don't think that.
Right. And we don't have to go, to that extreme to like, it's all rainbows and butterflies, but it's the difference between unhealthy thinking of black and white or all or nothing, really rigid thinking, kind of that tunnel vision of like, this is all bad and that's it, this is going to be horrible, to just flexibility and opening up and giving other opportunities and options for other thoughts to pop in the first place. But if I develop and hang on to that all or nothing, black or white thinking, I'm really limiting myself and my possibilities of my feelings and what I do with it.
Absolutely. So I recently bought your book on Amazon, Therapize Yourself, Choose to Heal and Find Your Truth. I have to say, I really enjoyed it. It was pragmatic, which I liked. It wasn't kind of this, airy-fairy philosophical stuff. It was really practical, which I really appreciated. How do you manage your challenges as and when they occur in your life?
Yeah, well, that's a good question, but it's going to come down to the coping skills and the self-care, right? And trying to attend to trying to do everything that is in that book, checking each area on a regular basis. How am I doing here? Where am I doing in this environment? Oh, this one's slipping, oh, the finances are getting a little out of control, and trying to just maintain and balance on a regular basis. But that is where my routines are very, very helpful, in the coping skills and the self-care, because no one's going to be perfect. Everyone's going to have hard days. Everyone's going to make mistakes. No one's going to cope and do self-care perfectly all of the time. That's impossible. But the more we have those on autopilot and routine and on a regular basis, the better we're going to cope to the things that life throws at us, because we're all going to have hard times. We just want to try to get through them with, less severe reactions or consequences, and manage them in a more regulated way. So knowing, okay, I look at coping skills as more of the in the moment, use this coping skill when something is happening right then and there, and I need to cope and I need to deal and I need to regulate myself. And then the self-care routines are the things that I'll do on a daily, a weekly, a monthly basis, things like making sure, what I'm eating, the workouts, my bedtime, how much sleep I'm getting, doing chiropractor and gua sha once a month, doing massage once a month, these routine things that, if, kind of looking at as preventative care, if my body and my health are doing better, my emotional state's going to do better. If I'm seeing friends and socializing, that helps in body or mind and spirit, and just making sure that things are attended to on a routine basis as much as possible. Now, perfecting that 24/7 all the time, life happens and it's impossible. But the more routine I have, the better I'm going to handle the things that life throws at us, or the mistakes we make, and be able to get through to the other side with a little less scarring, maybe.
One thing you say in the book, which I really like, which is a sage piece of advice, is know yourself.
And so, and yeah, that for me is kind of key, because even when you know then you're spiraling out of control, or you know you're reacting to something, or something has really triggered you, at least you know.
Yeah.
And you can be like, okay, I'm not acting entirely rationally in this situation. Like, what do I need to do? So even that, you know, just that little bit of awareness is kind of a buffer between the challenge and yourself, which I really like.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I also think one thing which I think is a stereotype or a misconception is really around self-care and like social class. I think self-care, you know, can be like, no matter your social status or the amount of money in your bank account, like you would know because you've worked in a very diverse set of circumstances, like self-care can be implemented wherever and whenever you are.
Yes. Yeah. It doesn't have to be all spa days and, you know, massages and the things that take a toll on our finances. If you can budget them in, fantastic, go for it. Right. But self-care could be 20 minutes of reading a book. It could be, you know, walking in nature a couple times a week, making sure you get outside. There's plenty of free things, you know, maybe it's painting, drawing. Everyone's self-care is going to look very different. It's just important that we know what works for us. It's important that we have those tools in our toolbox.
Yeah, interesting. Something I was thinking about in preparing for the chat is like, what is the point? Because I'm sure you can identify from the sounds of things, you are a pretty go-getter person, want to do more. I'm the same, like, and generally the ladies who listen to the show are, you know, we want more from life. Like, we want to achieve the best that we can in sport, or we want to do better, we want to learn more, we want to succeed in our careers. And I've often reflected on like, what is the point where you are compassionate with yourself, and what is the point where you're like, okay, well, if you want this, you're going to have to level up, you know, because that's what resilience is. You know, I remember there's this hill close to my house, and the first time I cycled up it, I honestly thought like, this is insane. I don't know how people do this. And now it's like a little hill that I go on a training ride, which gave me such a perspective for life, because I'm like, well, if that was a mountain and now it's a hill, like what else in your life is a mountain that could be a hill?
Right. And like you said, it's perspective. And I don't, now I lost track of your original question.
No, it was just around like, what is the point, or where do you give yourself self-compassion, and where do you tell yourself, now listen up, it's time to level up? Like, I guess it comes down to knowing yourself.
Exactly. And I think they coincide all the time, right? Like if I'm working on self-improvement and I'm wanting to level up in whatever area on a regular basis, like if self-improvement and evolving and growing for the better next version of me is kind of always there in general, you know, then that being kind to yourself and having compassion should also be there as well, all the time. I don't like to use the word should, but you know, it's beneficial if they're there together. And so that when they're there together, the compassion part and this being kind to yourself might be the part saying, you know, you can put this area on hold, you can take a little bit of a break here, you can rest here, and you can tend to these, or you can just be in a maintaining pattern right now and you can relax, or you know, and then it's time to, okay, you can kick back into gear and work on this. But it's knowing yourself, knowing your body. But I think they just go hand in hand.
I like that. That's It's funny, it never occurred to me that they would go hand in hand, but I totally get. I love that. I love that. So now you talk in your book about beliefs. How come we have, I'm sure you've experienced this with people and possibly in yourself, like we have beliefs in some areas and not in others. So maybe in some people believe that they are worthy of a relationship and they have it, or some people really believe that they can achieve anything physically and they go and do that, but then they don't have that belief in their career. Like, why is that? And how do we, is belief a muscle that you build?
Okay, so it is interesting where, you know, we can be a certain way in one area of our life and another in a different area. I generally tend to believe that if we have a negative belief, it affects most all areas, but it might show up more prevalently in one over another. But I'm going to say that's most likely because of our life experience, you know, what we saw, what's stored, you know, in our brain and in our body from what we have gone through, what we saw, the messages we received, what we told ourselves, how we interpreted them, you know. So it really is such an individual thing. Like I couldn't say this is the reason for everybody. But if you give me one person and we dig into their background, their childhood, what their parents' marriage was like, their parents' careers, their work drive, their ethic, their family dynamics, their genetics, what they eat. And that's why thorough assessments are so important to me, because all of these things play such a huge part. And then I can start connecting the dots and say, oh, that's why, you know, your career just, you know, goes off the charts and you avoid, you know, love and relationships. It'll start to make sense when I had that big girl background. But I if we dig far enough, I generally can see though that if you have a negative belief of, you know, I'm not good enough, it's not that it's not like, and your career is awesome, but your love is struggling. It's not that it's not showing up in your career too. It is. We'll find it. It's just, it might be the symptom of it might be more prevalent in your love relationships for whatever reason. And we'd have to dig in, you know, personally to understand that. But it's just it's like the idea of like, you know, my anxiety shows up in my right jaw. That's where it gets tense. That's where it hurts. Why is it never the left one? I don't know. It's just a symptom. It's where it's just where it comes out. I don't know if there's necessarily a rhyme or a reason as to why, you know, I might tense or tighten up my right side more. It's the dominant side. Maybe that's, you know, all there is to it. But it's just the symptom. And we want to dig into understanding more of the belief system, where it came from, identifying it, and then clearing that out.
How did you come to write the book? What was the inspiration?
The inspiration, I think, was when I really realized, like, I'm repeating myself all the time, you know, like I'm repeating myself, saying the same things. These key things that are in that book, these are the things that I hear myself saying to clients day in, day out. And I've been doing this long enough. I've seen that pattern, and I've, you know, it's clear in my head, all the things that I do in my systems and the things I explore and ask. And so that it was just that repetition and the patterns of seeing what works. And it was just kind of a spilling that out into, you know, how can I get this message across, not only to my clients, but a you know, wider audience, and help more people, different people in different ways, and get this message out there. And it just felt like also a way to kind of like bottle up, you know, everything. There's no way you can bottle it up entirely, because again, it's such an individual experience, but a way to bottle up kind of like the basics. If you're not ready for therapy quite yet, or coaching, or asking for help quite yet, maybe check out this book and then start here and get familiar with working on yourself, getting to know yourself, you know, exploring here, you know, kind of looking at it as like that stepping stone from, if you've done no therapy, no coaching, start here, stepping stone towards, you know, asking for help.
It's interesting, like how people still don't want to ask for help. Carrie? It's interesting how some people still don't want to ask for help.
Yeah, I think there's so many reasons, but it's societal, maybe there's a societal stigma for asking for help, and people can equate that with being weak. There's something really wrong with me if I can't do it myself, or thinking that therapy means I have to have this severe, issue or diagnosis, as opposed to just wanting to learn and myself and navigate life. Fear of facing ourselves. A lot of the things that we're going to go address in therapy or coaching are things that we've been struggling with, that are painful. Maybe we've been avoiding for a long time. And there's a fear of facing those parts of ourselves. So it can be scary, feels vulnerable. Some people don't know or feel comfortable with being vulnerable. So, being exposed in that sense, but there's a lot of different reasons. But I'm going to say, fear is behind all of them.
That's true. That's true. And actually, there was a point in my life I haven't wanted to ask for help. So yeah, I do get that. So what is your message with your book, with your work? I always ask guests, like, what is your one statement for the world? I know it's a big question, but
yeah, I think that goes in line with, my title of Therapize Yourself. There's a couple different meanings to that, but like I want the idea and the message of taking control of our own mental health and well-being in general, because we're the only ones that can help and heal ourselves. Even if I'm going to an expert, they're guiding me, but I'm the only one that is the expert on my thoughts and my feelings. And I'm the only one that can follow through on challenging my thought process or my behaviors and habits. I'm the only one that can help myself at the end of the day. And so wanting to really empower people to take their mental health and their well-being into their own hands and be their own advocates in that sense, which could also include asking for help, right? And also just the idea of those baby steps. It's, we're gonna get further if we just start somewhere, take a baby step towards, self-care, self-help.
Absolutely. And I think I love that about taking accountability for yourself. And we're learning new things about ourselves every day. I'm often surprised. I used to think it was like this destination. Wow, I am now I've arrived.
Right. Right.
But yeah, it's a constant learning journey.
Never ending. So it might benefit us to gain some skills there, right?
Right. Well, I really want to thank you for joining me today. It's been fascinating to read your book. I highly, highly recommend it to those of you who are listening. And I really love your perspective of evaluating your stresses, taking baby steps, and really taking accountability for your life and knowing that it can change, but you just got to start.
Right. Thank you so much for having me. It's been my pleasure.
Thank you. I hope you have been as inspired as I have on today's episode of Velo Dulce. Please share with a friend, rate on iTunes, and most importantly, get on your bicycle, grab a friend, drink some coffee, and here is to living Velo Dulce.